Hey there, what's going on? Got a little extra free time today. I want to go ahead and talk about something. Out of all the cars I've owned, one thing I've noticed, no matter what the car is, doesn't even matter if it's the same car, there's always a different group of people that follows it. So what do I mean by that? For example, Fox body Mustangs, they have their group of people that follow Fox bodies. There are people in the Fox body segment that only follow certain Fox bodies. Same thing with every generation car, it seems. S550 cars, there are Shelby guys, there's the GT350 guys, the GT500 guys, there's the GT guys, there's the EcoBoost guys. Hell, there's even the HPP EcoBoost guys that are separated from the normal EcoBoost guys. So there's always these like subgroups of enthusiast with each car, even if it's the same car. There's these sub niche groups of every car, every trim level, year, special model. They all have their own little groups. And out of all the cars I've owned, I've been a part of many groups over the years. One thing I've learned is not one single group is the same as the next. Some are good, some are okay, and some are just downright terrible, almost borderline toxic. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about all the experiences I had with those groups in today's video.
Let's have some fun on Karz Created.
All right, so I'm gonna do this in a chronological order, starting from my first car, ending up to the current cars, which is of course this Mustang and the Fiero. So we're going to start off with my very first car. That's my 93 Ford Taurus GL. And you're thinking to yourself, there ain't no way there was an enthusiast group for like a non-SHO Taurus of that generation. And that's where you would be wrong. Believe it or not, there was a big group of people interested in making that generation Taurus faster and better. There was a lot of diehard enthusiasts. I remember reading guys going to great lengths to make these Tauruses sleepers, even the non-SHO cars. So like in the second generation Taurus, which is one I had, 92 through 95, you could either get the 3-liter Vulcan V6 or the 3.8-liter Essex V6. Both engines had their pros and cons, but with the bigger Essex V6, you had the advantage of displacement. And they were very closely related to the 3.8 liters that were in the Thunderbird Super Coupes of the time. So what you would have is people, you know, finding ways of fitting those superchargers onto these 3.8 liter Tauruses, making them faster. It was interesting. You know, they were very dedicated guys. They were just having fun with what they had, trying to make everything work. I mean, there were ones that were swapping the manual transmission from the SHO into like the normal 3-liter Taurus. There was all kinds of things going on, and they were a pretty innovative group of enthusiasts. Because that was my first car, that was my first intro to these, you know, niche enthusiast groups with cars, and it was really cool. I mean, there were people back and forth developing a bunch of parts for these cars. I mean, there was a company out there making camshafts, heads, valves, everything for these. For a lot of people, it's already hard to fathom the SHO even being considered a performance car, let alone just the normal run-of-your-mill base model Taurus of the 90s. But people were doing it, and that group of people was awesome. Till this day, I still really love all the things I read, all the innovations, and all of the enthusiasm that group of people had. So after losing that Taurus in a rear-end collision, I ended up kind of inheriting the family car, which was a 99 Toyota Camry. And with this car, you thought, okay, there definitely is not an enthusiast following for a Camry. There is. Of course there is. Thankfully, it wasn't the 4-cylinder model, it was the V6. I had that going for me at the time. Of course, you know, I told my parents I wasn't going to do much to the car, but I was going to do a few things I wanted to make it more of my own. And so, with the help of reading lots of forum threads and everything, I did a few things to that car to make it fun. I mean, it wasn't fast, but it was quick, you know? It was one of those cars where it was quicker than you think it would be, even though it wasn't all that fast, really. You know, I think it was like a 0 to 60 somewhere around 7 seconds or whatever. But I tell you, the V6 in those cars had a huge following. There were a lot of people trying to do things with them. And something a lot of people don't know is during that era of Toyota, the TRD division was actually developing parts that you could buy from the dealership to put on your brand new V6 Camry. And one of those parts was a factory TRD supercharger. Yeah, supercharged V6 Camrys existed. These guys are always just trying to locate these superchargers. They didn't make many of them. A lot of them were probably lost with the cars they were put on. So anytime any of these superchargers came up, these people, they would go nuts. They're like, oh my God, we got this supercharger. And they were going for like a lot of money because they were so rare and hard to come across. It was a very interesting group of people. They were very enthusiastic about the Camry and about the V6. And getting into that group of people, of course, then I went from old school American car to modern Japanese, and it just completely opened my mind to a whole different segment of car enthusiasts. And those people were also the same. They were super genuine, super enthusiastic in trying to make things work with what they had. Some people figured out a few different cool tricks you could do to just squeeze out a little bit of additional torque, all by rerouting some vacuum lines to the variable runner system in the intake. And it was really cool to be a part of that. And I really liked that group of people too. So both experiences with those cars and their groups was really positive. So then moving on from the Camry came my first big boy car. Not big boy in terms of power, but it's one of the most well-known cars of all time. It was probably one of the most favored version of that car. Of course, that's my 93 5-liter Fox Body Coupe. Stepping into the world of Mustangs and the Fox Body, good gravy. You talk about just massive following. The forums, the groups surrounding that car was endless. This is when I started encountering some of the more toxic individuals of the car groups. And with that, what I've noticed was there was a darker side of the car enthusiast world than what I was originally able to perceive. While there were still good people, there was definitely a lot of just toxic people. There were definitely people that you could not tell them anything. They've seen it, they've done it. You tried to suggest anything that isn't what they know, and they would flame the crap out of you. They would just kick your ass right out of the forum. It was nuts. And that's when I started seeing this kind of stuff coming from grown men arguing over cars in community forums. With that, of course, there were the good people, and there were good people who had a lot of good things to say that were helpful to people entering into the world of Fox bodies. But it seemed like the overall majority wasn't all that helpful, and just a lot of them were toxic, honestly. Groups surrounding that car wasn't really the best. It was kind of like, you're on your own, man. You know, like if you got a problem, I'll tell you what the problem is. You don't want to hear it, then I can't help you. And that's how they treated it. It was really weird. But nevertheless, that's how things rolled with that car and the group that surrounded it. Since that wasn't my only Mustang, that definitely wasn't going to be my only encounter with those kind of people. So then from the Fox Body, we're moving on to the 97 Cobra. Oh my God, my favorite car that I've ever had. I'm still to this day, can't believe that car left me in the fashion it did. Talking about the group of people that followed that car. Mixed bag of people. I gotta tell you, some extremely knowledgeable people follow that group of car because it's entering into the world of modular V8s, the Ford modular engine family. It's not so much like the Cobra, but this was the modular Cobra, the 97, the dual cam 4.6, and just all of the overhead cam Ford V8s. So these people who are a lot more technical than the older push rod people, and a lot of the guys that ran these forums were by the freaking book. Once again, very much their way or the highway, and if you don't agree, then they can't help you type of thing. There were a few people that were way up on the hierarchy level that are regarded like God tier level when it comes to technical questions around the car. Now, of course, if someone has experience with a car, there's no sense in questioning their knowledge. But it is seemingly impossible for someone to know everything, even if they've done it for a while, even if that's all they do. You know, a lot of times I would see questions come up surrounding that engine when building that engine and doing things to that car and getting power, and it would basically all come down to, don't do it, you're stupid, let someone like this guy do it. And it was weird. One guy was good for technical engine information and like the go-to guy for ordering camshafts. There was another guy that was the go-to in the group for, you know, certain machine work like porting heads and intake modifications, like the short runner modification for the factory intake. You couldn't even mention certain company names without someone getting completely butthurt. It was just weird. Like that group of people, like, while the knowledge of some of those guys was really good, they were just a overall odd bunch of people. I extracted what I could from all of it, did my own thing anyway, and enjoyed the car how I wished to have enjoyed it. I only used their information as a guideline and went from there. Moving on from the Cobra. Actually, during the Cobra period, I did get the other Fox by the 92 2.3 convertible. It's still part of the Fox group. They're all pretty much the same. There is a niche with the 2.3 car, and I gotta tell you that the 2.3 guys are a lot cooler than the V8 guys. I'm just gonna lay that out there right now. They're just a lot cooler people to deal with and to talk to. They don't seem to be as stubborn as some of the V8 guys, but yeah, that all aside, pretty much all the same thing with that car. So then moving on from those cars comes the 14 SHO. First SHO I've ever had. I thought it was actually going to be a second gen, but it was a 4th gen SHO. And it was the first mostly new car I've ever had. And it was one of the fastest cars I ever had. And it was probably one of the most interesting cars I've ever had because of the type of car it is. You know, this is a big, roomy, relatively nicely equipped Ford sedan with a pretty stout twin turbo V6 and a decently capable all-wheel drive system. So it was a very interesting car. With that, getting into the EcoBoost group. So of course, not only is there the SHO group of guys for each generation SHO, but there's also the EcoBoost guys, and there's like a group of EcoBoost guys for every EcoBoost engine that's ever existed. And of course, as a whole, there's just the EcoBoost group, so it's crazy. There was a lot of similarities between the EcoBoost group of guys, especially just the SHO guys, and the Cobra guys. Very technical. A lot of companies and specific individuals were held very high on the hierarchy list, and you know, it was basically them or nothing. It seemed to be very hard to extract unbiased opinions because people had such fond opinions of certain companies and certain people within the community. So it was really hard to kind of like break the mold from that and to suggest things without kind of being really questioned and quarried about why you're doing it and why you're not doing it the way everyone else does it. It was a mildly toxic community, depending on which way you look at it. And what I've noticed is a lot of the EcoBoost guys are kind of like that, no matter which EcoBoost platform you go into. It just seems more or less the guys that follow the EcoBoost cars. But I'm not saying everyone was bad. I know a lot of people that are watching this video right now have followed me from the SHO days. You'll probably definitely know what I'm talking about. And anything I mean, I don't mean in a bad way. It's just my perception of things and how I feel during my time with these cars and the people in the community of these cars. So, you know, don't take anything personally. At the end of the day, it's just one guy's opinion, one guy's experience. I don't really have too many bad things to say, and I don't really have too many good things to say either about that group of people. It was probably the more cut and dry group of people, and you know, that's just how it is. Moving on from the SHO brings us to what we have now, the S550 Mustang. Of course, with the S550 Mustang, you have all of your subgroups and just being the 6th generation Mustang. Getting into the S550 world, holy crap, I thought the Fox body world was something different. Getting to the S550 world flipped everything onto its lid, because the amount of immaturity that involves the S550 world, the amount of toxic individuals that reside in the S550 world is unbelievable. It is probably one of the most, if not probably the most popular generation Mustang of all time, for many good reasons. It's a really good car. But of course, me being me, I didn't opt for the V8 cars. You know, I could have gotten a GT Mustang, but I didn't want to. I didn't want to get a regular EcoBoost car, which pretty much narrowed it down to the HPP. I gotta tell you, the HPP guys is probably my favorite group of people out of all of the groups I've ever been in with any of my cars. So they're basically taking all of the best traits from all of the other groups and putting it in one. You know, the HPP guys, they're very enthusiastic. They're not really holding anyone to a table of hierarchy other than just the people that are related into the EcoBoost world, but nothing specific, you know? Everyone's kind of open to certain things and suggestions and ideas without scrutiny or any other crap, and it's probably the best group of people I've ever been a part of as far as, you know, a niche group of enthusiasts for a car. HPP guys are making this car even more enjoyable. Definitely the most positive group of people out of all of them, and I love the guys that I talk to, and everyone's super helpful, and we all just want the best for each other, and I love that. I think that is a great way of going about it. With that out of the way, brings us to our final and last car, and that is the Fiero. Of course, the Fiero has a following of its own, and then so does swapped Fieros, specifically the 3.8 liter supercharged engine out of any of the, you know, GM products. That engine swap has basically a pretty much its own cult following for that car. Once again, very old school style people, but that group of people, once again, they're kind of more or less like the 2nd gen Taurus people and the Camry people and all that. They're just kind of your down to earth guys. They're just trying to make things work with what they have. A lot of people are just out there trying to create things because there's no one really out there creating parts for those cars anymore. Some companies still make some parts and the engines themselves, but a lot of times it's a lot of ingenuity, backyard ingenuity, and custom fabrication and innovation that goes into it. And I love that. It's one of my favorite things about some of these car groups, and that's basically the Fiero group and the ones surrounding the supercharged swapped cars. Not a bad group of people at all. I really enjoy hearing what people have to say and listening to what people have to say, and people sharing their builds and stuff in that group, and it's really cool. Definitely up there. And honestly, if I had to put everything in a list of best to worst, from least toxic to most toxic, of course we're going to start number 1 with the HPP guys. Then I believe under that we're going to go with the Fiero guys. Just under that we're going to go with the SHO guys, and the only reason I say that is because even though some of the individuals are a little the enthusiasm of the SHO platform and the people that are going to great lengths trying to make that car more than it ever should be is really admirable. And I really love the fact that there are so many people just trying to create better parts for that platform. So I'm going to put that in number 3 for that reason alone. Going to number 4, I really think we're going to follow up with the 2nd gen Taurus guys, believe it or not, because once again, just guys trying to do everything they can and enjoy what they have, making their own parts, making things work. We're going to follow that with the Cobra guys and the Ford Modular V8 guys. Not the best of the bunch, but some of them really were smart about what they were doing, and they did a lot of personal testing, so some of them did have an advantage with their opinion rather than certain other individuals. So they go next, and at the last of the list is the Fox Body group. Sorry guys, that was probably the worst group of guys I've ever had to be part of. I didn't really get too much from that group of people other than they're there. So anyway, that is basically all of the group of cars I've been, all the different niche groups surrounding each car I've ever had, and obviously the list from best to worst of all of them. Out of all the groups you've been in, let me know what you think was the best and the worst. Put them in the comments. This is definitely a group conversation type video. I want to talk about it. So go ahead and throw that in the comments, but that is going to wrap up this video. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with everyone you know. If you want to see more content like this and you haven't already, go ahead, subscribe to the channel, keep looking out for the next true car enthusiast video.